Before snacks came in shiny packages, they came from loving hands, warm kitchens, and recipes you could smell from the front porch. Oh, honey, come sit a little closer. Let me tell you about a time when the kitchen was the heart of everything. Back in the 1970s, before all these ready-made snacks lined grocery store shelves, every party, every holiday, every little gathering, it all began at home. Not with a quick trip to the store, but with butter melting on the stove and recipes passed down like family secrets. I remember those afternoons so clearly. The house would be alive with sounds, mixing bowls clinking, oven doors opening, laughter drifting in from the living room. Your great-grandma would tie on her apron, and that was the signal something special was about to happen. One of the first things we'd make for any party was our famous party mix. Oh, it wasn't something you could just buy back then. No, we made it ourselves. Big roasting pan, a whole stick of butter melting down, and that rich smell filling every corner of the house. Then came the cereal, the nuts, the pretzels, all tossed together and baked slowly while we stirred it every so often, sneaking little bites when we thought no one was looking. And let me tell you something, every family had their own way of making it. Some added extra seasoning, others poured in more butter than they'd ever admit. That was the secret, you see. It wasn't just a recipe, it was personality baked right in. And then there was the cheese ball. Oh, you couldn't have a proper gathering without one sitting right in the center of the table, surrounded by crackers like it was royalty. Creamy, rich, rolled in nuts, and always made the day before so the flavors could settle in just right. Every hostess had her own version, and we all quietly judged whose was best. But what I remember most isn't just the food, it's how everyone gathered around it. People didn't just eat, they talked, they laughed, they stayed a while. The table wasn't just for snacks, it was where stories were shared and memories were made. Things are faster now, easier maybe, but back then, every bite had a little bit of love in it. Now, let me tell you about something even stranger, the time we turned gelatin into a centerpiece. Oh, you're gonna like this one, or maybe you'll think we'd all lost our minds back then. Now listen, these days Jell-O is just something you eat after dinner, right? A simple dessert in a little cup. But back in the 1970s, oh no, sweetheart, Jell-O was everything. It wasn't just dessert, it was a side dish, an appetizer, sometimes even the star of the whole table. I can still see those shining molds hanging on kitchen walls, copper, aluminum, shaped like flowers, rings, even fancy patterns. We didn't just pour Jell-O into a bowl. No, we turned it into something beautiful, something that made people stop and stare. But here's the funny part. We didn't just put sweet things in it. Oh, no. We'd make lime Jell-O and mix in shredded carrots and celery. Sometimes we'd suspend fruit inside, little pieces floating like jewels. And then, well, some folks got a little too creative. I remember one dish, Lord help me, lemon Jell-O with tuna fish and olives. Yes, tuna. We all smiled politely when it hit the table, but you could always tell who was brave enough to try it. Making those molds wasn't easy either. You had to pour one layer, let it set just right, then add another. And the real test, turning it out onto the plate without it collapsing into a wobbling mess. When it came out perfect, smooth, shiny, standing tall, it felt like you just won a prize. And then there were popcorn balls. Oh, those were pure magic. We'd stand around the stove, popping corn the old-fashioned way, while a pot of sugary syrup bubbled away. Once it was ready, we'd pour it over the popcorn and rush, quickly now, to shape it into balls before it hardened. We'd butter our hands, laughing as the heat made us hurry. Sometimes we'd color them bright orange for Halloween or red and green for Christmas. Sticky fingers, sweet smell in the air, those were good days. But you know, things started to change. People got busier. Stores started selling ready-made treats. And little by little, these homemade creations, these edible works of art, began to disappear. Still, I can't help but smile thinking about them, even the strange ones. Now, come closer. Let me tell you about the snacks that showed up at every single gathering, no matter the occasion. Now, sweetheart, if there's one thing you should know about those days, it's this. No matter where you went, you always knew what would be waiting on the table. Didn't matter if it was a church potluck, a family reunion, or just neighbors dropping by. Some dishes showed up every single time, like old friends who never missed a visit. First, there were the deviled eggs. Oh my, those eggs, lined up so neatly on a special tray, each one filled just right and dusted with a little sprinkle of paprika on top. That red sprinkle wasn't optional, it was tradition. You could spot a proper deviled egg from across the room. I used to help make 'em, you know, peeling those boiled eggs, trying not to tear the whites, then mixing the yolks with mayonnaise, mustard, and just a splash of pickle juice. Simple, but oh so good. No fancy ingredients, no twists, just the way it had always been done. And right beside them, more often than not, you'd find a warm dish of meatballs. But not just any meatballs. These were the famous grape jelly meatballs. Now, I know what you're thinking, grape jelly, but don't you go judging until you've tasted them. That sweet jelly mixed with chili sauce made this sticky, tangy glaze that clung to every bite. We'd keep 'em warm in those slow cookers that had just become popular back then, and people would gather around with toothpicks, sneaking one, then another, then another. They never lasted long. And then came the sweets. Oh, the sweets was something special. There was this candy called Divinity, light as air, soft like a cloud. When it turned out right, it would just melt in your mouth. But making it, that was a gamble. Too humid outside and the whole thing would turn into a sticky mess. I remember folks checking the weather before even thinking about making it. And peanut brittle, now that took courage. Boiling sugar to just the right temperature, not a second too long or too short. When it worked, it was perfect, crunchy, sweet, with just a little salt. When it didn't, well, let's just say you didn't want to bite down too hard. But here's the thing, dear. These dishes weren't just about taste. They were about effort, about care, about someone standing in the kitchen watching the clock, stirring the pot, hoping it turned out just right for the people they loved. That's what made them special. Now, let me tell you about the snacks that brought a little fun and sometimes a little surprise to every party table. Oh, now this is where things get fun, because not everything we made back then was serious or fancy. Some of it was just plain delightful, the kind of food that made people smile the moment they saw it. Take something we used to call ants on a log. Now, don't make that face. It wasn't real ants. It was celery sticks filled with peanut butter and topped with little raisins. But to us kids, oh, it was the funniest thing in the world. We'd line them up, pretending they were marching along before gobbling them up in seconds. Simple, silly, perfect. And then there were pigs in a blanket. Now those were a party favorite. Little sausages wrapped up snug in soft dough, baked until golden. The smell alone would pull people straight into the kitchen. We'd serve them hot with ketchup and mustard on the side. And I swear, if you turned your back for 1 minute, the whole tray would be gone. Some folks tried to get fancy, adding cheese or brushing butter on top. But honestly, the simple ones were always the best. But if you really wanted to impress your guests, oh, you'd bring out something special, like the cheese and pineapple hedgehog. Now that was a sight to behold. We'd take half a melon or grapefruit, cover it in foil, and stick it full of toothpicks, each one holding a cube of cheese and a chunk of pineapple. By the time you were done, it looked like a little spiky creature sitting right there on the table. People loved it, not just because it tasted good, but because it was fun. It made the table feel alive. And then there was stuffed celery. Not quite as exciting to look at, but oh, it had its place, filled with cream cheese or something a little tangy, sliced into neat little bites. It was the kind of thing you'd keep reaching for without even realizing it. You see, back then, food wasn't just about filling your plate. It was about bringing a little joy, a little creativity into the room. Even the simplest snacks had a touch of personality. But not everything was playful. Some dishes, well, they tried very hard to be elegant, sophisticated even. Now come along, I'll tell you about the ones that made us feel just a little bit fancy, even if they seem a bit strange today. Now, sweetheart, every now and then we like to think we were a little sophisticated. Oh yes, not everything was peanut butter and popcorn balls. Sometimes we brought out dishes that made us feel like we were hosting something truly elegant, the kind of food you'd imagine at a fancy cocktail party. One of those dishes was something called fondue. Now that was an experience. We had this special pot sat right on the table with a little flame underneath, keeping everything warm and melted. Inside, a rich mixture of cheese and wine bubbling gently. Everyone would gather around with long forks, dipping pieces of bread, apples, even vegetables into that golden, gooey goodness. But here's the thing, it wasn't just about eating, it made people slow down. You had to wait your turn, reach in carefully, laugh when someone dropped their bread into the pot. It brought people close together, shoulder to shoulder, sharing stories between bites. That's something you don't see much anymore. And then, well, there were dishes that looked fancy, even if they might raise a few eyebrows today, like salmon mousse. Oh my goodness, I can still picture it. We'd take this creamy mixture of salmon and other ingredients, pour it into a mold shaped like a fish, and let it set. When you turned it out onto the plate, it looked like a real fish, decorated with olives for eyes and little cucumber slices for scales. We were so proud of it. Guests would gather around, admiring it, before spreading it on crackers. Back then, it felt elegant, impressive. Today, well, I suppose folks might find it a bit unusual. And then there was something called ramaki. Now that one came from those trendy tiki-style parties. Little bites wrapped in bacon, cooked until crispy, with a sweet glaze. People couldn't get enough of them. They felt exotic, different, like something you'd only taste at a special occasion. But you know what's funny? All these fancy dishes, they didn't last. As time went on, people's tastes changed. What once felt elegant started to feel old-fashioned. Still, I wouldn't trade those moments for anything, because whether it was a bubbling pot of cheese or a carefully shaped dish on a platter, it wasn't really about being fancy. It was about making something with your own hands and sharing it with the people around you. Now, let me tell you about the sweet treats, the ones that made holidays feel like magic. Oh, honey, now we're getting to my favorite part. Because if there's one thing we knew how to do in those days, it was make something sweet feel like pure magic. The holidays especially. Oh, the kitchen would turn into a wonderland. I remember standing on a chair just to reach the counter, watching as sugar bubbled away in heavy pots. Your great-grandma didn't need timers half the time. She just knew when things were ready. Said you could tell by the smell, the color, even the way it sounded. One of the biggest treats we made was peanut brittle. Now that wasn't for the faint of heart. You had to heat sugar to just the right point. Too little and it stayed sticky, too much and it burned. But when you got it right, Oh, it was something special. Thin, golden, filled with peanuts, snapping perfectly between your fingers. We'd spread it out on big pans, let it cool, then break it into pieces, and somehow, no matter how much we made, it never lasted long. And then there was caramel corn. Now that was an event. We'd make a big pot of caramel, pour it over fresh popcorn, then bake it slowly while stirring again and again. The smell would drift through the whole house, sweet, buttery, impossible to ignore. You didn't just eat caramel corn. You waited for it, watched it, stirred it. It was part of the experience. That's what made all of this so special, you see. It wasn't just about the treats. It was about the time spent making them, the laughter in the kitchen, the little mistakes, the feeling of creating something with your own hands. Now, well, you can buy all of it in a store, but somehow it just doesn't taste the same. Now come here just a little closer, because the last part of this story isn't about food at all. It's about what we lost and what we still carry with us. Come here, sweetheart. This is the part I think about the most. You see, all those dishes I've been telling you about, the cheese balls, the popcorn treats, the bubbling pots of fondue, they didn't just disappear overnight. They slowly faded one by one as life began to change. People got busier. Stores filled up with ready-made foods, neatly packaged, quick and easy. You didn't need to melt butter or watch a candy thermometer anymore. You could just open a bag, and that was that. And I suppose in some ways it made life simpler. But something else slipped away too. Back then, making food wasn't just about eating, it was about being together. The kitchen was where stories were told, where children learned by watching, where recipes lived not on paper, but in memory. We didn't rush through it, we felt it. I still remember how the house would smell for hours, how we'd sneak little tastes, how someone always laughed when something didn't turn out right. Even the mistakes became part of the story. Now, don't get me wrong, times change, and that's all right. Every generation finds its own way of doing things. But sometimes I wonder, how many people today know the feeling of shaping popcorn balls with warm, sticky hands, or waiting patiently as fudge cools, hoping it sets just right, or gathering around a table, not just to eat, but to linger, to talk, to truly be there? Those recipes may be fading, but the spirit behind them, that care, that effort, that love, that doesn't have to disappear. Because here's the truth, dear. It was never really about the snacks. It was about the hands that made them and the people who shared them. And as long as someone remembers, as long as someone tells the story, a little piece of that time still lives on. Now tell me, if we were to step into that old kitchen together, which one would you want to make first? And if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story, like if it brought back memories, and share it with a friend who loves a little nostalgia as much as you do.